Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us. We know your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending the next 30 minutes with us. Today, we're diving into why Apple is a major opportunity for MSPs, sharing real-world success stories, and showing how Addigy makes Apple management simple and scalable. Whether you're new to Apple or already managing some Apple devices, we hope you'll walk away with actionable insights. And here's what we'll cover over the next 30 minutes. We also want this to be interactive, so please feel free to participate in the chat and drop questions into the Q&A section. We'll answer as many as possible at the end. And speaking of the end, please stick around because we have a special opportunity for those who want to take the next step with Apple management. With that, let's get started. First, I'd like to introduce our speakers, and we'll start with Jason Detburn.
Thank you, Ben. Well, guys, I'm really happy to be in front of all of you guys today. I started Addigy out of a passion for the needs that we saw within the MSP community for Apple devices, and it's been a major fuel for our growth. I always say, as you guys grow, we grow as well too. So we wanted to take that time to share those insights and how we'll be able to help all of you guys continue to scale up the business. Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. And I've been involved in Apple technology since 1998. Officially became a Apple-focused MSP in 2006. I sold my business in 2020 to Intiva, who today is one of the fastest growing MSPs in the United States, and is also where my former team continues to use Addigy. So I'm super excited to be here and really excited that we have our special guest, Matt Lee, with us. Matt?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm a recovering MSP. I suppose that's the way to say it. No, I tease. But I met Addigy and Jason back when I was a managed service provider. I started as technician number 7 in a small break fix tech company. And we grew that from 1 million to 3 and 5 and 28 and 40 and now over 600 million in revenue. And I got to exit a couple of times in a row. Now I spend my days trying to drive education around cybersecurity in the MSP space. And that's why I'm super happy to be here today and talk about it. Because yes, Macs are still assets. We have to deal with them. Anyways, thanks for having me, all.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And before we dive into that, I was looking at your, I mean, we've
My
met
letters
before, but
yeah.
when I looked at your LinkedIn profile, you have a lot of letters behind your name. So I had to look these up.
Sure.
Are there any you want to highlight here, or did I get them right?
My favorite. So CISSP was great. That's good. Like I'm a CISO. I know what I'm talking about. CCSP is very cloud centric, identity and access management, extensibilities, a lot of SSO. CFR is like what happens when things go boom. And that's a first responder type. How do we deal with the incident? And then my favorite, which was a 1-week test. It was a 7-day exam, practical network penetration tester. They just hand you a company in California. It's now changed, but it used to be the Pasta Mentors. And your job was to get into an external network and then gain internal position and gain an internal pen test and write it up. And I turned in my 260-page reports on what I found, and that was the test. So that was a fun test. I would highly encourage you to take practicum type exams like that. They're a blast. But yeah, and I only put the top 4 that I like. I try to get 2 more a year, and so those are the ones I'm in love with right now. Those are the top 4. Anyways,
so you're basically the guy to call when stuff happens.
Just a student.
No, not Write a Boom. Nobody wants to be involved in Write a Boom.
Well, what's funny is I actually do. So I volunteer. One of my charity organizations is the emergency response team. And so myself, Robert Chiaffi, Chris Lair, Jay Tipton, a whole bunch of people, when MSPs have their worst day, we provide counseling and coaching of what they should be doing during that time. So I do live Write a Boom still quite a bit.
But yes, ideally, they call you before.
That's the goal. Yeah. It'd be left of Boom. It'd be the best.
Okay. So just to set the stage here, on Apple's latest earnings call, Tim Cook announced that Apple now has a record 2.35 billion active Apple devices worldwide.
Sure.
And that is an increase, to give you some perspective, of 550 million just since 2022 and 150 million in the past year alone. So I know when I was running my MSP, Apple focused, I had the feeling, and I still get this from some MSPs I talk to that they're waiting for the Apple devices to go away, and the exact opposite is certainly
Yeah.
happening.
Well, there's a lot of reasons for that, Ben. Like, think about it. Our world has shifted over the last 10 years, principally from small businesses running software that had to run on a Windows based host and server in a large predominance of things, and people being accommodated by running a Windows machine to access that, right? That was essentially the challenge of that. Now, most of your apps are SaaS and identity centric. I can use it on any device that has a web browser that can provide a user agent string that is allowed to run the website that is trying to run that code. That's it. So you have this flexibility that's been created in that regard. You have a lot of work from home. You have way increases in BYOD. You have tons of that kind of stuff playing out, or bring your own device if you're not familiar with the term in the audience. But all those forces come together to totally support this, right? Is to absolutely support that there's not a barrier to entry, and whatever device you want to use, you could use, comma, space.
Right.
As long as you understand, and this is what my call to MSPs today is, that when you look at CIS, I love the Center for Internet Security's critical controls. They're amazing. I've been a student and a teacher of them for the last, I think, 7 years. But the critical controls 1.1, which is going to be on my tombstone, what is an asset? Right? It is having an inventory of your assets. Says an asset is anything that can store or process data. If your people are using MacBooks or using iPhones, they are storing or processing company data. And it really comes down to, you have to manage them. I mean, like, you just can't say, oh, we're ignoring the Macs. I'm not a Mac shop. I'll beat you to death with your MacBook. I don't care. I'll gain access from that and steal a token and use it from that, right? So anyway, side tangent, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
support for why this is happening. And why MSPs should be able to manage them. Yeah, go ahead.
And we just put out a blog article on a security roundup on Apple's side. I don't think people realize the updates that keep coming out from Apple, especially the last 6 months, are addressing a lot of CV vulnerabilities. The last one that I beat my chest on was right before Sequoia in September. It's the last stable release they put out before Sequoia, and addressed 75 major CV vulnerabilities. And it's sort of like, guys, if you're not patching that environment, you're doing a disservice to everyone, right? Like, yeah, it's a real challenge, and they're addressing a lot of CV vulnerabilities that we got to stay on top of.
And everybody used to make an argument that, hey, Macs are more secure, they have less problems. I'd always made the argument of Willie Sutton's point, which is, why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is, stupid. And as more and more Macs become where the money is, stupid, you're going to attack them. You're going to find vulnerabilities, to your point, right, Jason? And I think that's the reason they're seeing more is people are actually enumerating and attacking Macs, because that's where they can steal the crown jewels from now, more and more.
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
perfect, dude.
Well, I wanted to just let everyone know that despite Apple's history of focusing on the consumer, they actually are making inroads into businesses, and they're actively going after it. And before I forget, we do have a poll that I want to launch. We only have 3. This is our first one, so I'm going to unlock this to get an idea of the audience here today. But what percentage of your managed devices are Apple? So while that's running, I want to show this web page. Apple has basically a dedicated page to small business, and I would definitely check this out because you want to understand how Apple's positioning their solutions to your customers or potential customers. And there's the QR code, and I'll just paste in the chat the actual page here. And if you scroll down to that page, at the bottom of that page, you'll see a link to Apple's directory of independent Apple consultants. And this is called the Apple Consultants Network. And it's a list of Apple certified consultants. Why does this matter? It matters because we know Apple is actively driving businesses to work with Apple specialized IT providers.
Sure.
So if you don't offer Apple support, your clients may find an IT provider who is. And I encourage everyone to check that out because you can basically see a list of all the certified in each region around the world. You can see who's certified in Apple, and we have something that ties into that at the end of this webinar. So stick around to the end.
Yeah, so I was going to say one quick thing on that. It's interesting to me when when you're bidding on an opportunity with a customer, and you know the other counterpart, right? You can either reduce your pricing to try to win the deal, or a lot of times if they're not in Apple ACN, you can point that out, like, hey, you're looking at this other provider. They're not even an Apple ACN, period. They're not on Apple's website. They're not listed. We have training that we've done and certifications that has a lot. And it's really interesting on the poll perspective because we do have some core Apple MSPs on here that 50% plus of their business is Apple. That's almost half of our audience here, and then the other half are ones that make up, you know, anywhere from 10 to 15% of their portfolio. We're regularly working with customers that have
Yep.
60,000, 100,000 Windows devices, and they have literally 2,000 Apple devices, and it's just
Yep.
this is where they're not even on the ACN. So it's really important to do this, I think.
And I think a lot of Mac-centric MSPs, Ben, going back to your time, you've had this covered. You've been using MDM tools. You've been understanding how to serve them. You know the nuances of working with a Mac. You've understood the challenges that come up. I think it's that other class, Jason, of MSPs that have 10 to 30% of their devices that are Mac, and they're just not speaking towards them. They're dealing with them one
Yeah.
off when they have problems. They have that one guy named Tim that's been certified, and maybe he'll help out a little bit, but they're not providing that same user experience that they would for the other side. And I think that's the biggest growth area is that 20% of your device space. And we'll see this in a couple of slides, how much that might change your revenue if you were managing those better or being more inclusive of BYOD devices in the way you bill and what you manage. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm truly terrified so regularly that they're truly unmanaged. And you're signing off on a cybersecurity insurance that says, yeah, these are managed devices, and
Yeah.
nobody's,
It's
they're
even
lucky they
worse,
have remote
Jason.
control.
It's even worse because the way Mac has always approached things and Apple's always approached things is the sovereignty of that consumer identity, right? And when you look at it, the way you first get a MacBook, I just got a new MacBook this weekend or last weekend. I just put in an identity, just make one up right there. That's my
That's
core
right.
identity. And if I'm going to manage that with a enterprise domain or with, let's say, I'm using all Office 365 or Google, I now have two identities. I have an identity that is unmanaged that lives on this asset and that I'm not managing, and then the core identity that I want to steal. What does that mean? If I can get on this device with that first identity, I can steal this identity. I don't even need to do anything else. I can just take the token, right? And so it's this interesting place where there's all that unmanaged aspect in the user experience, but it's also the risk that's coming that plays out from that, and that marriage of that consumer asset focus aspect. So, and agreed, like said just in there that most MSPs are using RMMs to solve this and not MDMs. And that really split, Jason, when you and I met. I mean, that was,
Yeah.
we got to a point where I couldn't sustain my RMM functionalities in the security landscape that I lived in, that I had to switch to an MDM, right? When I was doing this, that's where you and I met 10 years ago, or however long ago it's been.
It's been a while. Awesome. Yeah,
Well,
and they haven't gotten any better about it either in the RMM space, and nobody has, right? So,
Well, to follow up with that, after talking with so many MSPs about this and living it myself when my team got acquired by a much larger Windows-based MSP,
Mm-hmm.
it really is a cultural shift that needs to happen because I've seen MSPs basically tell their clients for years that they don't do Apple. They don't
Mm-hmm.
need to worry about Apple. Apple secure enough, just take care of it yourself. And for them to one day wake up and say, well, now I realize from a security perspective that I can no longer ignore it. They
Correct.
have to educate their clients on that because the clients are like, well,
You've
why?
been telling me I'm good, like for this
Yeah.
long.
Yeah, you've
Yeah.
been telling me for years.
Yeah.
And so the client's not going to step up and say, hey, I have Apple or I want Apple. The barrier are these preconceptions that Windows teams have put on their customers and taught their clients to basically take care of their own Apple devices. And now they need to step up and say, we need to work together and we need to secure all the endpoints, as you said, Matt. And when I hear MSPs say, I don't have clients asking for Apple, I say, have you asked your customers? Because almost every time you ask someone if they would like to have an Apple device at work, it's a very high percentage that say they would, but they know IT doesn't like it or support it, so they don't even bring it up. So, yes, so that's my little rant. Sorry about that.
I love it, brother.
Okay, these are just some other tools you may hear Apple talking about to businesses, and I certainly see this a lot. I go out to coffee shops. Almost every coffee shop now is run on iPads. And speaking of coffee shops, when I was running my MSP, if I saw a Mac, this is back in the 2000s and early 2012. If I saw an Apple device in a coffee shop, I'd be like, hey, look, there's an Apple device. Today, when I go out to these coffee shops, and you said it earlier, Matt, it's like people are working from anywhere, and
Yep.
9 times out of 10, they're on an Apple device. They're on a Mac. It's totally shifted. It's totally swapped what I was seeing
Yeah.
years ago.
Totally has. Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about there are MSPs who are embracing this, and they're getting ahead of it. And if you're not doing it, you need to pay attention to it. Go to the ACN network, see what your competitors are doing. I do want to highlight just one brief success story that we have on our website today, and I'm going to post the link right here in the chat. And this is an MSP that was heavily focused on Windows and decided to get into Apple. And these are some highlights from that. They grew their revenue by 33% simply by opening up and embracing the Apple platform.
Yeah.
They improved their EBITDA, and they scaled their Apple support. It's not as hard as you think if you have the right tools and process in place.
Yeah.
And then that
Well,
leads us to our
let's
second.
unpack that though real quick, because the point is, if you take on a device you can't support at scale, then you actually probably erode EBITDA even as you add revenue.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's a combination of those two things. And I think why would you see 33% revenue growth? Because you're building for devices you weren't billing for, because you're charging for more of them, right?
Yeah.
You might even be supporting other users that you wouldn't have supported in the former methodology. But the other side of that is, if you take on those devices and can't scale it and can't manage it and can't create a good experience and try to lock down things and add security without the ability and efficiency to manage it, you're just going to alienate revenue. And so I think I just want to stress that point is, you can't just lean in and say, I'm going to start charging for devices. You have to say, I have a plan for how I'm going to manage it. You've done that with your Windows devices. You have an RMM, you've done scripting, you've made KPIs, you've done measurement, you've made efficiencies of scale. It's just, you can't do that in the same way with Mac, and you have to get down the MDM road. And the challenge with that is there's a barrier to knowledge, right? There's an entry level of understanding what you're doing and a barrier to knowledge. And that's why I think the leaning in, going down a platform of an MDM, learning and understanding Macs and the delineations of what it takes to support them is probably, would you say those are those steps necessary to go be successful as an MSP coming from the Windows world? That's what I think of in my mind, in my history.
Yeah. I heard this on a webinar recently. What makes an MSP an MSP?
A sticky note on a window. Sorry,
what's
soon.
that?
A sticky note on a window that you've written MSP on. I digress.
Yeah, maybe. But a true MSP has standards, right? They have standards that they're trying to get themselves and their clients to align to. And this is really the crux of the story with Apple and Windows is most MSPs don't have an Apple standard. They're reacting. They're putting out fires. They're not managing these devices.
Agreed.
It's not a managed service provider solution. They have, like you said, Matt, they have it on the Windows side. They just need to bring that to the Apple side. And sometimes their frustration is that they have no standards, or they're using an RMM that really can't do what they need to do on the Apple platform.
100%.
And there's an important perspective to remember too. When we talk to internal IT professionals, they a lot of times look at the MSPs as a little threatening. But the organizations generally realize the value of what MSPs bring, which is, my internal IT might do one thing one time, right? But there's something that the MSPs do. They have a perspective where, they do things across different organizations. There's a robustness of that delivery because they're not like the special snowflake that's being done for the first time, that you do in internal IT. So it's a robust layer of what we do. Why is it helpful? Because I'm doing this with other customers and they're getting value out of that, and I could do the same for you. I know it's simplified that way, but and we got to make sure we don't bludgeon customers and prospects with IT language either, right? It's really
true.
important to level it up.
It's really more that I can manage the experience, that I can manage the security, that I can provide you with the tools that you need to be successful in your business. I mean, it's all the same stuff. It's not the nerdy bits that matter; it's the business bits. But
And while you guys are talking, and I'm delayed in this, but I launched a poll just to understand our audience and what you're doing today. How do you currently manage Apple devices? Are you managing them at all? So while that's happening, we'll continue talking here. And I only have one more poll, which I'm not going to launch just yet because I put them too close together. So what I do want to stress before we get into the demo is Addigy offers much more than just a tool and even more than a platform. The reason Jason and I are working together is because he saw what I did at my MSP and how I leveraged the Apple platform and the Addigy solution. And I'm trying to take that knowledge and share it with as many of you as possible. So we have MSP resources, enablement resources to help you grow. And it goes beyond providing a tool. It's really about communication to your customers, which is what we've all kind of touched on here. And these are tools that I wanted to build when I was running my own MSP, and I built some of them, but I never found the time to really go deep. And here at Addigy, with the team we have here, we're able to go deep and build these tools for you. So these are ways for you to go to market faster. You don't need to take the 20 years I took to get there. We can get you there a lot faster. So that's a plug for all the if I can say for myself, the great stuff I'm doing here at Addigy. But it's really enabled by Jason and the team and everyone here. So
But it does go back to what Jason said earlier, which is you're going to have to do some re-education of your clients if you've been telling them, hey, don't worry about it. We don't have to manage those. We don't like, and I think that one down in the middle of the device compliance argument and that discussion is probably one of the biggest ones coming of everybody's dealing with more and more privacy, more and more compliance, more regulatory, more contractual obligations. And they're actually getting to where you're having to prove them more, which means now I have to be able to show some type of evidentiary aspect to show that I'm managing the assets that I have in my asset inventory. And having that common communication plan might unlock new revenue and new services and things that you weren't selling, right? A great example of that I heard a guy talking about on stage recently was he went back to his customers and said, I've been selling you MDR. However, you're going to need to prove it for X number of years. Why don't I sell you documentation as a service where I store your reports for you, keep them auditable and ready to be ready for evidence for the next 7 years because you're a healthcare entity, and charged more for it, charged for documentation of the same stuff we'd already been selling to reframe the edges that we as MSPs haven't been doing. And without going on a 3-hour rant, that's going to be one of the biggest deaths for MSPs over the next 5 years is these unknown decisions you've made and not being able to prove the things you've been doing. If you've ever
yeah,
said to a technician, if it's not in the ticket notes, it didn't happen. Same thing comes to compliance. Same things comes to security. If you can't prove it, then it didn't happen. And so I think those comms templates, Ben, to your point of getting that out and getting people those communication paths easily, help repair some of that gap in understanding, right, with the clients
yeah.
of the
And
value statement.
something you said, Matt, is super important. A lot of MSPs are afraid to go to their customers and say we need to change how we're working because they feel like they should have been doing it sooner. And I
Yep,
understand that feeling, but
it's not true.
the way to frame that is the world is constantly changing at such a rapid pace that we are helping you adapt much more quickly. And here's why we need to make that change.
Yeah.
Investing more in their experience. One thing I was going to make sure everybody knows, because some of the questions that we're seeing, and I see a bunch of our customers are in this webinar as well too. If you are a customer, we'll make sure that you get access to our brandable marketing collateral on this and everything else. Take advantage of it immediately. So I'll make sure we get that and email you the points to all this stuff immediately. Matt, sorry.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
no,
that's
great.
right. And if you are a customer, you have access to these materials. Ping us, and we'll get you the access.
And the conditional access one that's there too.
Yeah,
Yes, that means they're using their MacBooks to go access their Microsoft environments. And we need to speak towards that difference in identity, right? And if you're a CIS practitioner, that's 5.6 and 6.7, the ability to centralize access control, the ability to centralize identity. And that also brings you to one of the things, Jason, that drew me to you early on, which is the ability to use my Microsoft identity to sign into my Mac using Addigy, so that you
yeah.
can bring
Exactly.
that back closer together, where the identity is more congruent across the asset to the
Okay.
software
Well, we
assets.
have we have one more guest I failed to mention. That's Iggy, who's going to give us a demo. We promised him at least 5 minutes. So I don't know
Awesome.
how he's going to do it all in 5 minutes, but um, we'll see. Iggy, I'm going to
Yeah,
stop
how's it
sharing my
going?
screen.
All good. I'm
Welcome.
ready
Thank you.
here. No problem. We're gonna brush over it really quick at a really high level just to get you a good feel of what's going on. Um, so let me go ahead and get that started, right? Um, as Jason mentioned, we do have a lot of our clients here, so you folks already probably know a lot of this. But this is Addigy, right? So Addigy is a platform that follows a heavily policy-driven approach to group your devices and manage them. and it really leans into what MSPs need to support them on a multi-client level, like single pane of glass, right? It really goes at an angle of trying to marry what an RMM should feel like, but accomplish what an Apple full device management needs to be. Within a policy, once we drill it in, right? If you go into one of your policies within the structure, you have access to many different things to apply to your devices and really follow in line what Apple wants you to do. So we have our updates that's going over the MDM and the new DDM protocols to your devices, right? We have our profiles, which is going to set your system settings, restrict the device, configure, Wi-Fi, allow privacy security settings, and do that all within the group for the devices. We have our software, which is your really quick and easy custom software deployment out, leaning into the Apple Business Manager or School Manager side of the house, into the volume purchase program or Apple Apps deployment, and our own public repository of software that you can lean into and use, right? Monitoring is also a really big piece here for our MSP clients, because it allows you to get real-time data back whenever devices lean into or get passing a threshold of something that you're going to be looking for, right? Is a device offline for too long? Is the disk running full? We want to know that really fast. And then for our MSPs, we also have integrations with your PSA system, so you can generate those tickets, know that in real time, and then create action for your engineers or for yourself to go ahead and move forward and lean into them. And then the hot topic of conversation that we've been hearing with Ben, Jason, and Matt is going to be compliance, right? So in Addigy, we have what we like to call our one-click compliance, right? So we do have a partnership with a lot of the security standards within the United States. So we have CIS, CMMC, DISA-STIG, and NIST for monitoring and remediation. So it's not just letting you know, but helping you get there and stay there, right? And yeah, so that's really the meat and potatoes of what Addigy will allow you to do on a policy structure
I
and
want to share
keeping the
something
devices
here.
managed.
Do you mind if I share something here real quick for MSPs?
Please.
If you're doing CIS benchmarks are through the CIS Secure Suite membership aspect. If you're an MSP and you want to go get that Secure Suite membership aspect to do it, that cost is fairly prohibitive, right, Jason? And so this allows them to apply those controls without necessarily having to go themselves and get a separate agreement with CIS to use those memberships. So what I like pointing out and people often miss is those aren't cheap. The benchmarks themselves, the controls are, but the benchmarks cost quite a bit. And so I would imagine Addigy has done that relationship to be able to provide these and do this way, in which case that saves you a lot of headache and a lot of having to be the expert in the room.
Yeah, we work very closely with NIST, and we're having an upcoming webinar with Bob Gendler, the one who puts together the benchmarks at
Awesome.
NIST. We work very closely with him. And the thing is, I think, look, obviously I'm a little biased, but I think we found the true Goldilocks of compliance ability here, because what our customers do, and we have a high adoption rate of our compliance management, is that they go to a new environment, they deploy this at a monitoring level. Where does this customer sit as far as stack up to CIS level 1, 2, et cetera? Do I want to go to the extent of even DISA, CMC standards? I can look at that. I can basically monitor and say, okay, here's where we fall short of the benchmark level. And then the key thing here is you don't get sold into the idea that somebody's got a big button to hit to meet, NIST level, NIST high level. You're going to break their environment, right? Especially a new customer. You want to have a gap analysis to know, where are they today? Where do we need to get them? Right? And then build a plan with them. We're going to turn off AirDrop. We're going to do these things, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. We'll do that next quarter. We'll communicate with your employees about that. But now I'm going to subset and automate the remediation and continuous compliance of this area. And then those gaps we're going to fill over the next quarter, 2 quarters, and we're going to get you there in a seamless way. That's been the Goldilocks that we've unlocked. It's not the overly complicated methodology. It's not a simple button that's going to break the environment. It's a pathway that's very easy to manage and get to. And that's one of the things that I'm very proud of that we've been able to do here at Addigy.
And
Yeah.
sorry to jump in here, but I did launch the last poll, and I see we got almost everyone responding. And it was, what's the biggest challenge keeping you from managing Apple devices? And almost 3/4 of people have responded with either lack of Apple expertise, or we don't have a platform to support Apple, no scalable MDM DDM solution.
Yeah.
And so
And Iggy, while we're
obviously,
doing this,
yeah.
if you can go Iggy, to the catalog and compliance, just so the top level benchmarks we have. I am sorry to keep this so quick and short, but I always love the fact that we hopefully provide something of high value in like 30 minutes versus you guys listening to our weekends for the first 10 minutes of an hour long, webinar. So we did have more to come, and we happily would like to make sure that you get all the value components we had in there. But we got one last thing there, Ben.
Yeah, for sure. Let me reshare my screen here. Here we go. Okay, first of all, we do have, I just want everyone to know about this because I'm super excited about it. Pricing your MSP services, that's going to be really interesting next month. Sign up for that on our website or scan that code. And then our offer, our limited time offer. And so here it is. We want to make sure that you're educated on the Apple platform, and this will not only teach you about Apple, it'll of course teach you about Addigy, and it also qualifies as a requirement in the Apple Consultants Network. Meaning, I think as someone put it in the chat there, they were needing this certification, or
That's right. They need this requirement.
yeah. And so this is the way to do it. This is limited for those only here today. Sign up, and let me get the put it in the chat here.
Does that count me? Can I sign up or no? I've been looking for a new cert.
Your Matt, yeah, exactly.
You need another
Need a new
cert, Matt. You
Yeah,
can
100%.
certainly do it.
The question in the chat was limited to participants or their team as well, Jason?
Their team. Yeah. I mean,
cool.
within your organization, we want to take care of you and the team that you're working with. It might not be necessarily you that wants to get the certification, so happily able to serve your team there. And yeah, this is a lot of work on our part and high value, but again, we want you guys to grow. If you grow, we're growing. That's
Mhm.
the name of the game. We don't lock you into long contracts. We actually prorate the billing. So if you remove devices, we stop billing that day because we are myopic about if you're not earning revenue, we're not, getting any value out of it either. We want to help you guys grow, period. And this will be an important step to getting there.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I want you to get secure because that end is coming soon. So.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I want to respect everyone's time. We've gone over a little bit, and if we didn't get to your questions, we will follow up with you. And in fact, I want to thank everyone for attending. Our team will follow up to see if this content was helpful. And if you absolutely can't wait, or it's going to be impossible for us to get a hold of you, then you can also visit addigy.com/demo, or you can email sales@addigy.com. And I think it might have been mentioned earlier, but we do have a related blog post that goes into more detail about a lot of the topics we discussed here, and that's the last QR code I have. So any other last comments, Matt or Jason, before we say goodbye?
No, I appreciate it. And let's hope that Matt gets home. He's stuck in Denver in a hotel and in mid-travel, hasn't been able to reach his destination or get home. So
yeah, neither. I'm in limbo. So I'll make
Fingers
it. Thank y'all
crossed
for
for
being
you.
here, and
Yeah.
please connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any questions or want to challenge anything I've said. I love the discourse and conversations. So thank y'all.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you, Matt. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye now.